In this video, we're going to cover how to find a strategy that works. So when you are applying to jobs, there's information that you don't know, right? You don't know if necessarily that a particular job category is getting a lot of competition and it's going to be really tough for you to get a job there. You don't know if a particular company is getting inundated. You don't know if for your industry, you may not know how important a cover letter is, how many resume pages you should have, right? And so what I recommend doing is when you're trying to figure out a strategy that's going to work, there's two things I recommend we're going to cover today. One is basically trying random strategies. And so we're going to talk about that in a little bit, trying random strategies. And the second is looking for experts that can help you. And we're going to talk about both. So first, on the trying random strategies. So one of the things I did when I was in grad school, and I think a little bit in college, was I did a ton of networking. And I would keep track of things to the point where I think I was actually keeping track of the specific message I would send out. And I would try different messages and see what was working, what was not working. And if something finally started working, I'd start maybe using that specific message, right? And so I've taken those same types of principles, and what I do now is I will apply to some jobs, and some jobs I will apply with a resume, cover letter. Sorry, I always apply with a resume. Sometimes I'll apply with a resume and a cover letter. Sometimes I'll just apply with a resume. Sometimes I will network with people. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I will apply to a specific job category, and other times I won't. And so what I'm doing is I'm getting information when I do this about what will be working and what won't be working. So one thing I think I found, I haven't looked at it recently, but I think as of recent, when I have applied to roles, outside of specific situations where I didn't need a resume, for example, if I had a very close contact to that hiring manager, like if I had a sort of a working relationship with a recruiter, outside of having a situation like this, I don't think I've ever gotten success by applying with just a resume and no cover letter. So I think the cover letter is important for me, and again, your industry, maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it does matter, but by trying these random strategies, I'm learning. Another thing that you can keep track of is maybe how many, and if you really want to get detailed, like how many resume pages did you submit? So maybe you have like two different versions of your resume. One's like 2 pages or 3 pages, one's 1 page. See which one performs better. And by doing this sort of testing, you can gain information about which strategies are working, which aren't. If you always use the same strategy, you might be successful, might not, but you aren't learning anything about how successful you're being. So I recommend trying random strategies and then keeping track of what strategies you're using. These can be as high level as yes, no, I submitted a cover letter, and as granular as here's the message I submitted when I asked somebody to forward my resume to someone else. The second thing, in addition to trying random strategies, I also recommend seeking expert help. So you might be in an industry that is completely different from my industry. And as a result, and when I'm helping people with their resumes, sometimes they'll ask me how many pages should my resume be, for example. And what I try to tell them is I recommend trying to find somebody who's an expert in your industry, sort of an expert resource, who can give you some of that industry tailored advice, because I'm not in the industry. So for example, if you're in the higher education fine arts, if you're wanting to be a professor of fine arts, you might need a 5-page resume. And that might be a normal thing. And if you have a 1-page resume, it looks really strange, right? If you're applying to a business analyst role and you give them a 5-page resume, they might look at it and say, this is, why would you ever do this? Why would you go over 2 pages, right? And so this level of industry differences is important. And so what I recommend doing is reaching out to contacts and friends you have in that industry. And it could be anything from a former coworker that you're on reasonably good terms with to someone who's basically a mentor of yours who's in the industry. And you can reach out and send them you can send them your cover letter, you can send them your resume. You can send them. You can do like a mock interview. But by getting this expert resource in the industry, you're getting some of that information that you might not get from somebody outside the industry necessarily. So these are the two things. So by doing the random strategies, by doing random things and keeping track and seeing what's working, what's not working, you're learning information through kind of a bit of a chaotic way, but you're learning information about what's working, what's not working. By talking to an expert resource, you're getting much more targeted information. And you might be able to save yourself a lot of time from the kind of chaotic random route. For example, you might have an expert in your industry tell you, you know what, it's extremely important, you must have a cover letter. So when you're doing your testing, you stop testing the cover letter, you maybe always have a cover letter. But you start testing other things, like you test, applying to one job category versus another, applying to maybe a lead role versus a non-lead role, things like that. So, so those are a couple strategies for trying to find a strategy that works, or a couple, I guess you call them heuristics for finding a strategy that works. There's going to be new videos on this channel, as always, every Wednesday. There's going to be some more videos in this particular playlist. So stay tuned.